So as you guys know, we said for the topic for this week, we thought it'd be really interesting to talk about what does the church teach about drugs. And so as you guys know...
Don't do them.
What's that?
Don't do them.
Don't do them, don't do them. That's it. All right, that's our topic. All right, let's eat pizza. So basically, we just want to kind of help you, inform you guys, because it's probably something you guys deal with maybe in your schools or, other people. Yes?
Your head is cut out of the video.
Oh, is it?
It's too close.
You can move it closer.
Yeah.
How's that?
Is this better?
Or you can... Okay, just move it back just a little. There we go. Okay, perfect.
That's good.
That's fine. It's fine. It's good.
Audio. The audio
It's
is
a
what's
GoPro.
really important. The audio is what's important. So, so I'm excited to, as I brought this topic up, I was talking to people, and then as I was talking to Mr. Lin, he's like, oh yeah, I could talk about that. I worked in the Northeast, man. I'm like, oh wow. So as you guys don't know, the Northeast is, it's a little rougher part of the neighborhood, but I came from there too, but I turned out okay.
Southeast.
Southeast?
You were southeast. Just so you know.
Marlboro?
I thought you were Forest Lawn.
No. No, just above. But I was basically on the edge of the memorial board, so I was basically southeast. So
That's where I started my policing career
Nice.
in 1990.
man, so
Forest Lawn, Pembroke.
Forest Lawn, Pembroke. Okay, that's what. Actually, so I did used to live in Pembroke.
There you go. That
So
is
I was,
southeast.
So I was southeast. And so I just want to give.
See, the police know.
You check my records before you came here. So I just want to give. I want you guys to give a hand for Mr. Lin, who's come in.
So, some of you know me from church as the guy that does collections or does some readings the odd time or does a whole lot of cooking at the church, but I also wear other hats. So, for the last 29 years, I've been known as Constable Lin at the Calgary Police Service. For the last 20-some years, I've also been known as the God Squad guy. Nice T-shirts.
I have one of those.
Yes, Zach has one of those because he's come out to volunteer, and you too will have opportunities this March to do the same.
Exactly.
Because God Squad might even make a donation to help your forge. Ooh. It's recorded, so now you know it's
official.
It's official record. But when Deacon Troy asked me to come and talk about drugs specifically, I said sure, because for the last 9 years, I've worked with youth at risk. So youth at risk of falling into gangs, and where there's drugs, there's usually gangs, because that's part of their big business plan, is they look at it as business. They sell the drugs, make the money, and with the gang, that's one of their big income earners. So just from a self-harm point of view, even if you think that marijuana, a toke here and there, not a big deal, but you were also fueling that drug trade, which fuels the violence that goes along with it. And yes, Justin Trudeau said it's okay to have a marijuana joint. Just because something's not illegal doesn't mean it's not good for you, okay? There's lots of studies out there that suggest, especially marijuana use at your age, leads to early onset schizophrenia in an increased amount in young people. But part of it is choices. And so you guys all heard, I'm sure, that Justin Trudeau legalized marijuana, right? But I'm not allowed to smoke it because I'm a police officer. And you're going, well, why? Because it's legal now, right? I can go home and have a shot of scotch, but I can't go and have a joint. And part of it is because of the residual effect that it has in your body. But how many, you guys all go to school, how many schools do you think you can go in and light up a joint. Zero, exactly. And that's the problem that a lot of the young people that I was working with, Justin Trudeau said it won't hurt me, but the problem is they're getting kicked out of school because they're having a joint. They're unable to concentrate on their schoolwork because they're having a joint. They're getting kicked out of their residential placements because they're having a joint. So just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it doesn't affect your lifestyle. How many employers do you think are going to allow you to have a joint before you go to work? Zero, right. So you're not going to be able to hold down a job. And that's what you have to start looking at is those decision making. There's two paths in life. One, in the Bible, it says it's a wide road that many travel, and the other is a narrow road that not all of us follow, which, except you guys, right? Because you're following Deacon Troy and myself, and we're trying to go that other path. And the further you get apart from the two, it's harder to see that other path or to get to that other path. And it's your daily choices that make a difference. And the drugs are harmful. I, unfortunately, in 29 years, have seen the negative effects within the community, within a family, far too often. I remember being a young constable going to tell a mom that her 14-year-old daughter's not coming home anymore because she overdosed. And that's not a conversation that I would wish on anybody. And it was choices that led to that. Or telling kids that their dad's not coming home because he spiraled too far down and died of an overdose. These are real life choices. Even if it was illegal or legal, that doesn't matter. It's what is the end. And you have to live your life with a vision of what your goal is. If you want to be a policeman, it's going to be harder to pass those lie detector tests. Oh yeah, I just did one line of coke. It wasn't anything. But it can affect your future. My son, Tim, who's a little older, he just turned 30 today. He was going to university down in the States. And we didn't realize that he owed money for his student visa. He was going to meet his then girlfriend's parents. He was flying down to LA and got pulled out of the line and thrown in a room because he owed money for his student visa because he was going to university in Florida at the time. And he goes, "Dad, as hard as that was, and I missed my flight and I had to get on another flight, I felt sorry for the other guys. There was a man around your age that was going to take his wife on a cruise, but they wouldn't let him in because of something he did when he was 18. He couldn't get into the country probably, even though his record's expunged, doesn't mean the U.S. is going to let you in." And there's been many articles even about even investing in the marijuana trade here, even though it's legal, the U.S. might not be leaving you in. So imagine if you get arrested for doing other drugs, or you have over the legal limit in your possession here in Canada when you're 16 or 18 or 21, and then you're 35 and you want to take your kids to Disneyland. Sorry kids, we can't go because of something Dad did when he was 18. None of you want to have that conversation with your kids. These are real life consequences. God always forgives. Man sometimes forgives. Nature never forgives. So you can be forgiven, and I highly recommend the sacrament of confession for your natural high. But sometimes the consequences of what you've done follow you for a long time. So it's best maybe not to put yourself in that situation. It's best, if they're lighting up at this party that you're at, to maybe say, hey, Mom, Dad, can you pick me up? I need a ride home. Or, if you don't have parents that are going to support you like that, call me or Deacon Troy. I'll come get you. Ask my kids. No matter what time, if you've had too much to drink, if you aren't in the best place, and that's what I did with the youth at risk for the last 9 years. I was there when they were not in a good place, and I'd get up and I'd go pick them up and get them to somewhere safe where they're, and that's every day you wake up, you've got decisions. Do I get out of bed so I'm on time for school today? Do I listen to my mom and unload the dishwasher? Do I clean my room? All of them are decisions with varying degrees on what's going to happen in your life. And some have very little consequences. You don't exercise for a week and eat nothing but pizza, you're probably going to get a little larger and a little more lethargic. You eat some of my brisket, go for a walk, play some frisbee golf, you're going to feel better. So, and that's where drugs come in, because unless they're there, quite often what you're doing is you're self-medicating. You're trying to fill a hole in your life with something that tries to take you out of it. And that's not the way to do it. And that's where the church has a way to fill those holes. Even though it might be legal to do something, doesn't mean it's right. And the church has lots of teachings that would say it's legal to do this in Canada, but it's not permissible under the church, especially in human sexuality and lots of areas that I've heard it likened to, okay, you guys, I'm sure all can picture a backyard, okay? And outside your backyard, there's landmines. You don't know where they are, they're buried. But inside your backyard is a safe haven. You don't have to worry at all. Now, what would make you feel safer? To have a fence, to know where those boundaries are, or to have nothing to delineate where your backyard starts and where it ends? Many of you wouldn't step off the back deck if you didn't know where your backyard started and ended, if there was landmines out there, right? And that's what the church does, is she sets up a fence saying, here's a safe environment for you. This is the best way that you can enjoy your life and not worry about things. Yes, you can go outside that fence and you might not step on any landmines, or you might just lose a leg or an arm. You're still alive, but you're a lot safer inside that fence. And it's a big backyard when you're talking about the Catholic Church. They give you a lot of latitude. And that's where I try to go out. I've felt that my calling, my vocation from God is to be a police officer, to go and talk to the young people especially about their life choices, about their use of drugs, about what's out there, the dangers, and try to lead them back to that path that we talked about.
Well, Mr. Lin, you brought up some really interesting points. Maybe one thing that's maybe more practical for the kids too is also how much is the fine for because what does the law stipulate? What does the law stipulate?
Well, it's brand new, and I just had the testing, so there's
Just in general, we can just say in
it's
general.
even for having a joint. I forget what the underage thing, but it's like if you're over the limit, it's $100 or $300 or $500 fine, depending on what you're at. It's still illegal for young people to be in possession of marijuana.
What's the fine for that?
I do not know. They're still working that out. Like,
Okay.
they went and legalized it without working everything out.
Oh, but I think you bring up another interesting point too, where you say that because it's legal in Canada, but where is it else? Where else is it legal in the world? Is it just Netherlands? Europe?
Colorado, Washington. There's, I think, 13 states now that it's, well, there's a difference between decriminalized and legal. Whereas Canada's gone to make it legal, other places have decriminalized it. So it's not a criminal offense, it's still an offense, but it's not legal, where we've legalized it and tried to, so the doctor, I'm sure, will get to talk about THC levels and stuff like that. So THC is the active ingredient in marijuana. And what, unfortunately, a lot of my generation thinks, oh, I had a toke when I was 17, it wasn't that bad. But the THC levels in a lot of the marijuana was like 3 back when I was, and I think it's as high as, I think they've even hit levels of 30. So the potency is so much stronger from the 70s to now, because so I don't know where the government's got on THC levels and stuff like that. So the active ingredient, I was given this was 2 years ago, I was given a presentation by 2 doctors that talked about the brain damage that's involved with that.
So it's really interesting too. You say that because you can go home and have like a drink of scotch, but you're saying you can't ever smoke weed
Currently,
unless you're on like
insurance,
vacation or something.
until
But
somebody, it takes, I think it was saying it takes 14 days to absolutely leave your system.
Wow. So why do the police put that restriction in there? What effect are they saying that is going to impair your work, or what is it? What is
That's what the thought process is. So this is brand new because we're talking October 18th. So not that long ago that the laws came into effect to allow marijuana use in Canada. So this is all brand new, and I'm sure there's going to be a policeman somewhere that's going to fight it won't be me. And I pity the fool that brings it into my house. So, Peter. But, Chris. So, no, nobody's allowed to have it in my house because, well, and even for myself, because for 29 years, I've seen the damage. I've seen what it's done to young people especially. So when it became legal, I could have put some of my investment money into it, but I couldn't do that. Even though a lot of people were making a lot of money off of it, I couldn't, in good conscience, look at myself in the mirror when I got up to shave, knowing that I was going to make money off of other people's misery. Just like Bishop Henry a number of years ago, I'm thinking before you guys were born, looking around the room, he said that the Knights of Columbus could no longer profit off of casino money, which is legal, and there's a whole lot of groups that make a lot of money off of the casinos, but the misery that that caused in people's lives, and I was going out and dealing with those people. I had one woman that was at a halfway house who said, I've kicked crack, I've kicked coke, I can't kick gambling. And that's what I'm talking about. Some of those choices, you start going down that path, and it's extremely hard to get back your life under control. Because gambling, I'll just put another dollar in. And all of a sudden, when the VLTs first arrived in Alberta, I was policing, there was 2 employees at the TNC Hotel that ended up getting fired because they lost their entire year's wages, $30,000 on VLTs in a year. And they started getting desperate, taking money from the hotel and everything else. So, and the same thing happens with drugs and other issues. You start going down that path, you start lying to your parents, I just need this money to go out with my friends, but then you start needing more money.
So, Mr. Lin, maybe just before we kind of start to kind of taper off a little bit too, is maybe give a story. Do you have any, in your interaction with youth at risk, with youth who are using weed, do you have any interactions with a particular person that you could maybe give some insight to these kids about it? Or?
Well, actually, first off, I'd like to maybe hit a little closer home to you. I don't know if you know any of the boys or not, but so I used to work Chinatown, and we were dealing with a group. We nicknamed them the Runaway Boys, and it was a group that were running away. They had stolen some money from their family, and within 6 to 9 months, all of a sudden they were dealing drugs, stealing cars, and I found myself undercover as an altar boy at one of the funerals for one who thought it was the rival gang coming through. It was the police executing a search warrant, and he thought he'd hide by hanging on the outside of the apartment balcony and couldn't hang on anymore and fell to his death at age 15. He was 15 years old. And those group, I was at the funeral, half of the boys that were at that funeral are in jail now because they grew up to be the FK and the FOB, which is the warring gangs that was the cause of a lot of the shootings here in the last, from 2008 to, was the peak of it. So because of the path that they chose, because of the drugs, and then one of the young guys that I worked with who was struggling, and we got along great. I got him into school. He was playing on the football team. He was doing well, got him a place to live. But, he was the one that had, Trudeau says it's okay. And I just, there's nothing wrong with marijuana. I'm Jamaican, man. I gotta have my joint. And the problem was he ended up getting kicked out of school because of his marijuana use. He ended up getting kicked out of the place that he lived because of his marijuana use. And for a while there, he was living in a tent on the Bow River. So how many of you, grade 10, 11, are ready to move into a tent on the Bow River right now? One guy at the back maybe. So No, Brad? No? So,
So maybe we'll do two right now. Maybe if anyone, does anyone have any questions they want to throw in? Michael.
Since like the stores that are selling them, someone said that they're cheaper, and so it's legal now. People are like illegal businesses that if someone illegals are gonna lower in number. Is that true? How is it gonna affect the underground business?
So I'll repeat the question again. So the question, if you guys didn't hear, was because stores are selling it, supposedly it's a little bit cheaper. What's going to happen to the illegal businesses that are already operating?
well, and I'm guessing they're not going to fold up shop just because they're going to, try to undercut. They're going to try and sell the people that maybe are having trouble buying it at the stores, especially young people, because they can't buy it. And the other issue is, like those stores, if they do sell to young people or over, they face huge fines. So that's where they're not going to risk losing their license to sell a gram of marijuana to somebody who's underage.
Yeah.
Whereas the criminal element, they don't care. As long as they see the money, and
So you're saying that it's still a thriving business?
I don't foresee it going away overnight. The question whether it's a gateway drug, a friend that I tried to get to come tonight, he's a retired member, he's a classmate of mine. He was undercover in the drug unit for a number of years, and he firmly believes that marijuana is a gateway drug. And he worked in the industry for a number of years. He was in the houses buying drugs. He was doing all kinds of stuff.
I think he's undercover?
He was undercover. He looked like a druggie. Actually, if you ever get the opportunity to go to the new police museum, it's called Youth Link. It's attached to the police headquarters. You can see his picture there with the undercover drug guys. And I was trying to get him. He's teaching karate tonight, so he spent time in jail, and he struggles now with claustrophobia just because of the time he did in jail to try and get information from fellow inmates on some of the bigger crimes. It leaves a mark. He's one of the good guys who went into that world knowing that he had a place in this world. He says because he knew Jesus allowed him to go into the darkness and find his way back out. So know that once you start going down that path, that there is a way back, and there are people here that love and care for you and will help you find your way back. And sometimes it's with love, sometimes it's a kick in the ass to say, you're going down the wrong road. And
All right, well, I want to give some time for Dominic as well. So why don't everyone give a hand for Mr. Lin?
thank you guys. And if you ever need anything, let me know, and we're here for you. And Deacon Troy, I know, can get a hold of me, or Constable Lynn at the Calgary Police Service at your service. So,
You know where to find him.
that's right.
Did you have one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
The guy you said who was teaching karate, is his name Sid?
Nope. Glenn Smith. He lives down south. He was the first white guy to go over and win the All Japan karate tournament. So
All right, so our next guest, we're going to welcome up Dr. Dominic. Everyone give a hand for Dr. Dominic. to see you, man.
You can try.
How's life? Good, man.